So, The Invitation is not to be confused with the movie of the same name about the cult, which was actually a pretty good movie if you're into movies about cults. Anyway, just throwing that out there. So, this is about vampires, though it definitely does have sort of like a cult feel to it. Anyway, so these aren't your typical sparkly vampires, these are adult type dark vampires, sort of. Well, it feels like more of a grown up adult sort of vampire movie. I don't know. I've always loved vampire movies, I have to admit. You know, I grew up in that era of the Vampire Diaries, True Blood, and I used to love that movie Queen of the Damned. But now as an adult, it's sort of like a less popular thing, so I was surprised that they came out with a movie about vampires in 2022. But, you know, say what you will about Twilight, but I've got to say, it was a lot better than the young adult type movies they're coming out with these days. Anyway, so this, like I said, it can be seen by teenagers, but I do feel like it's gearing towards that sort of more adult audience like me who grew up with those movies, and it's trying to market itself to them. But yeah, it just fails across the board. Look, I thought I would really love this movie because, like I said, I like vampire movies. I love a good gothic horror movie. It's one of my all-time favorite genres. You know, Crimson Peak, The Woman in Black, I think, the one with Daniel Radcliffe in it, those were amazing. The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix is absolutely amazing. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it already, and that's got Michelle Huseman in it, who was also in that movie I was talking about, The Invitation. So yeah, if you like the gothic type genre, go check those out. Save your money. Don't see this. So the movie is about this girl who has no family, and she does a DNA test to see if she has any family out there. And it turns out she does have some in the English countryside. So they invite her to a wedding in the countryside, which sounds absolutely amazing, but of course it's not going to turn out that way. So I love that they have Alfred from Gotham, one of my all-time favorite TV shows, in this. And he plays the butler to Bruce Wayne in Gotham, and he plays the butler in this movie as well. And he was definitely the standout in terms of acting. I'll talk a bit more about acting later on, but yeah, I feel like the main girl in this, she was in Game of Thrones, she was Missandei, I think her name was. And I know she's a good actress. I had no problems with her acting ability, but her character was just so unlikable. She was so like self-righteous and judgmental that I almost found myself rooting for the vampires, and I'm pretty sure I wasn't meant to do that. Anyway, so we have this guy, I forget what his name was, but he's basically the lord of the manor who tries to charm this girl. And it turns out that he wants to sort of have this ritual that involves her. I'll get more into that later, but basically for the first two acts of the movie, we have this guy playing this charming gentleman, being a perfect gentleman, and then suddenly he snaps and just suddenly one night at dinner goes full on evil, and it just feels like there was no transition there. It went from Jekyll to Hyde suddenly, and I feel like if they had a scene where she caught him doing something evil, like drinking someone's blood, then it could have been explained away why he suddenly goes so cold so quickly. But this way, I don't know if they were trying to have us as a viewer feel confused and disjointed to show how she must have been feeling in that scene, but to me it just came off like bad script writing. Anyway, it feels like it would have been so much easier for this guy to be charming the whole time, to sit her down, explain, hey, I'm a vampire, I want to make you a vampire, you're going to get really rich and powerful, and have all these privileges in life. Like, that would have been an easier way to do it than just suddenly go all evil in front of her. I don't know. If you've seen the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. So one thing I think they should have done is, in the trailer, keep it secret that this was a vampire movie. Or you could allude to the fact that they were supernatural creatures, but keep the vampire bit a secret. And at least not spoil the ending, because in the trailer we saw all the big moments, the ritual, the wedding. So as it turns out, he wants to marry her because it brings his family power. If they marry someone of their bloodline, I can't remember, it's sort of a convoluted plot, but basically it's about inbreeding, and yeah, that's going to give them power somehow. I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, I feel like this, it had some genuinely creepy moments, but it just didn't have enough tension. If they had just gone more into leaning into the horror aspect, give it more scary moments, give it more tension, I would have liked this movie a whole lot more. And also the acting. I feel like the acting was one of the parts that really got me out of the movie. Whenever I started to get into it, the acting was so bad by almost everybody, except the main actress. Like I said, I don't think the problem was with her as an actress, but how they wrote her script. But yeah, everybody else was so bad, it almost felt like a caricature, however you say it, you know, like those rip-off parody spoof movies. It almost felt like I was watching a spoof movie of a vampire movie. And honestly, the ending just felt a little bit predictable. She escapes, she kills them, she gets some vampire powers, which allows her to kill the vampires because she suddenly has the strength and the power to do so. Look, I feel like this movie had potential. It had all the parts of a good movie. It had an interesting storyline. It had a talented lead actress. It had a lot of things going for it. I love the gothic atmosphere. I think the set design was beautiful. The house they filmed it in, it had like Crimson Peak vibes. It had so much going for it, but it just couldn't really put the pieces together. So I went in expecting Ready or Not, and because that's a movie I really felt like reminded me a lot of what the trailers sort of portrayed. Girl marrying into a rich family. Well, even though the girl in this doesn't go in expecting to get married, you know what I mean. And it's got the gothic setting. But instead of Ready or Not, I got Get Out. And look, I think Get Out was an amazing movie, and the political side of it definitely, you know, was needed in that movie because it was a movie heavily about politics. But this movie wasn't advertising itself as a movie with any political agenda, and yet I felt like we got quite a bit of that anyway, and it just didn't really feel like it fit in with the tone of the movie. You know, there was like this commentary of the rich eating the poor, which we've seen a lot in movies, and in this movie, it was quite literal because the rich were eating the maids, they were drinking their blood, and it reminded me that, what was that movie from the 80s called? Society, I think, where the rich literally ate the poor. Anyway, I liked that. I felt like that was a good message without it going over the top. If they just kept it at that message of this rich family seeking out a poor relative to try to draw her into their family, to abuse her in some way, that would have been fine. But then they had to go the second step, and there was all these unnecessary white people jokes that honestly were quite offensive, like white people are bad type jokes. And then the lead actress, the character in the movie, kept saying that sort of stuff, yet she wanted to date a white guy, the Lord of the Manor. It's like, yeah, make up your mind. Anyway, it just felt really unnecessary. And I just feel like not every movie needs that political aspect. Can't we just be entertained anymore? But Yeah, I felt like this movie had potential to be so much better, but unfortunately, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. So let me know what you thought of it down below. If you've seen it, if you haven't, don't bother, save your money. Anyway, let me know what your favorite gothic horror movie is, and if you want to see more, please subscribe or just give this video a like. It really helps my channel. Thanks, guys.